Welcome to This Explainer. I am so glad you're here. Today, we're going to decode a deeply universal and, let's be honest, slightly agonizing experience. Why our brains absolutely love to fixate on our most awkward, embarrassing moments. We'll take a calm, clear look at the actual neuroscience behind this. We're going to unpack exactly what's happening in your mind during these moments of sudden recall and show you how understanding this biology can actually bring you a pretty incredible amount of peace. So let's just dive right into it. Picture this. You're lying perfectly still in bed. The lights are out, the house is quiet, you're just about to drift off to sleep. And suddenly out of nowhere, your brain decides to vividly replay a deeply awkward social mistake you made literally 5 years ago. Your heart might even start racing a little bit. It's a profoundly common experience, right? And yet, when you're alone in the middle of the night, it can feel incredibly isolating. Hartford Healthcare actually captures this whole vibe with a really perfect, highly relatable example. Quote, "That time you waved back at a stranger who wasn't actually waving at you." Oh my gosh, we have all been there. It's a seemingly minor slip-up, but it leaves you wanting to just dissolve right into the floor. But before we get into the heavy neuroscience of memory consolidation, I really want to ground us in some empathy here. You are not alone in this. Not at all. In fact, your brain is actually following a highly sophisticated biological script. Okay, moving into section 1, the 2 a.m. brain. Let's look at why cringe strikes at night. So you're probably wondering, why do these cringeworthy memories always seem to ambush us exactly when we're trying to get to sleep? Why not at 2 p.m. on a random Tuesday? Well, as your body prepares for rest, your brain actually undergoes this fascinating shift in dominance. Your prefrontal cortex, which is the rational, logical part of your brain responsible for context and decision-making, it basically starts to power down. It is clocking out for the day. But on the other hand, your amygdala, your emotional control center, remains highly active. So without your rational waking brain there to put those awkward memories into proper logical context, they feel completely unfiltered. They're unregulated by reason, meaning a minor social faux pas is magnified by the amygdala into this overwhelming, almost terrifying sense of regret. That brings us to section 2, anatomy of an awkward memory. How embarrassment is actually encoded. Let's step back for a second and look chronologically at the exact moment an embarrassing event actually happens. You see, a truly embarrassing memory requires a whole life cycle of consolidation. Step 1 is the event itself. Researchers called this a public failure, which causes an immediate spike in physiological arousal, like a flushed face, a knot in your stomach, or a racing heart. Then comes step 2, which involves your amygdala. It acts kind of like a neon highlighter. It detects this physical arousal and immediately tags the moment with high emotional intensity. It's basically screaming to your system, hey, pay attention, this matters. Finally, in step 3, the amygdala works hand in hand with the hippocampus, which steps in to organize and firmly store all those vivid details. And here's the kicker. The stronger your physical reaction was in step 1, the deeper the memory is stored in step 3. Now, what's really fascinating here is the specific fMRI research into what makes embarrassment so unique. For genuine embarrassment to happen, it requires 2 things crashing together, a failure and an audience. When you're out in public, these mentalizing areas in your brain are highly active. They are constantly evaluating what other people think of you. When you mess up, your insula processes that sudden physical stress of the failure. True embarrassment is born exactly when these 2 separate signals, the thought of audience judgment and the physical rush of failure, integrate directly into your brain's core affect regions. It is a highly complex neural mashup that creates that hot, paralyzing rush of shame we all know so well. Up next is section 3, the negativity bias. Let's talk about why we so easily forget the good stuff. So this naturally leads us to kind of an obvious question, right? Why does the brain prioritize storing an awkward Zoom unmute over a major life achievement, like, say, giving a flawless wedding toast? The answer lies in something called the negativity bias. This is a very well-documented cognitive bias showing that human cognition is simply way more affected by negative events than by equally potent positive ones. Basically, negative information demands a VIP pass in your brain. It requires greater information processing resources. That means your brain literally spends more time reasoning and thinking about negative events, which ends up carving a much deeper, far more easily accessible imprint right into your memory. This points to a concept researchers call negativity dominance. Our brains consider negative social traits and events to be far more diagnostic of our true character and, honestly, our survival than positive ones. Think about it.
There's a baseline behavioral expectation in society that people are generally going to act positively, right? So when an embarrassing behavior occurs, it completely breaks that expectation. It's unexpected, it's highly salient, and your brain weighs it incredibly heavily to ensure you do not repeat behavior that could compromise your social standing.
Which takes us to Section 4, sleep, stress, and storage. This is all about consolidating the cringe over time. We've talked about the moment of the event itself, but encoding this memory isn't just instantaneous. It's an active process, and it continues while you rest. Some truly fascinating neuroimaging findings show that after an embarrassing event, your amygdala's heightened activity can persist for up to 2 full hours. And here's where it gets really wild. As you sleep, your brain actively and selectively strengthens those exact memories that the amygdala tagged with arousal earlier. In fact, research shows that the functional connectivity cementing these emotional memories is actually stronger after a week than it is after just 20 minutes. The memory is literally growing deeper roots in your mind while you're asleep. Insane, right? Let's move on to Section 5, a built-in survival mechanism, your brain's protective design.
Okay, if this all sounds like your brain is just executing a flawless plan to make you absolutely miserable, let's take a step back and completely reframe this. Because the core truth here is this: your brain remembers embarrassment so you can survive socially. From a purely biological and evolutionary standpoint, remembering emotional pain is an incredibly adaptive trait. Think back to our ancestors. They needed to remain part of the tribe to survive. Being socially excluded meant literal danger. Out in the wild, alone, not good. Therefore, your brain treats social embarrassment a lot like a physical threat. It sears the memory into your mind to help you learn from your mistakes, ensuring you avoid repeating behaviors that could lead to social rejection down the line.
And finally, Section 6, making peace with the past. How to reframe the cringe.
Now that we've kind of mastered the biological mystery here, how do we actually master our emotional response? How do we break this frustrating cycle of rumination? I absolutely love this piece of peer-to-peer advice from a Reddit user. Next time that 2 a.m. cringe attack hits you, remind yourself, it happened, but it's the past now, and it's probably only me who remembers it anymore anyways. It is so true. The audience you're so terrified was judging you has almost certainly forgotten the awkward moment entirely. They are way too busy lying awake worrying about their own embarrassing memories to remember yours.
So the next time your heart starts doing that familiar racing over a past mistake, I want you to use these cognitive reframing tools. First, recognize the rumination loop for what it is, and consciously direct your attention away from it. Just gently pivot your focus. Second, realize that cringing at your past self actually means you've grown. It means you possess way better social awareness now than you did back then. And finally, offer your brain a polite dismissal. Literally tell yourself, "Thanks, brain, I've already learned from this." This simple, conscious acknowledgement can actually soothe the amygdala. It signals that the perceived threat has been handled, which updates the old memory and helps prevent future social anxiety. Honestly, if you take away just one core, empathetic reframe from this explainer today, please let it be this: your brain is trying to protect you, not torture you. That hyper-vivid memory of a public failure is really just your biology's incredibly efficient way of keeping you safe, keeping you connected, and keeping you socially secure. It's not a bug in the system. It's a feature of a beautifully healthy mind. So I'm going to leave you to ponder this one final thought. What if your most embarrassing moment is actually your brain's greatest survival tool? The next time you find yourself lying awake, obsessing over a clumsy word or a mistaken wave, I really hope you can smile at your own neurobiology, thank your amygdala for doing its job so exceptionally well, and finally get some well-deserved sleep. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. I'll catch you next time.